The world had never seen a conflict like this before. A war that would engulf continents, redraw borders, topple empires, and forever change the nature of warfare. From 1914 to 1918, the First World War, also known as the Great War, became a devastating struggle of nations, fueled by nationalism, imperial ambitions, and a tangled web of alliances. It all began on June 28, 1914, with a single gunshot in Sarajevo. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary by a Serbian nationalist set off a chain reaction of events. Alliances were triggered, and within weeks, Europe was at war. The Central Powers, led by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, stood against the Allied powers, including Britain, France, Russia, and later, the United States. As the war dragged on, it turned into a brutal stalemate. The Western Front became a vast battlefield of trenches stretching from Belgium to Switzerland. Soldiers endured the horrors of trench warfare, mud-filled ditches, constant artillery bombardment, and the ever-present threat of machine guns. Millions perished in battles that yielded little ground, from Verdun to the Somme, where entire divisions were lost in a single day. World War I introduced weapons never seen before. Tanks, developed by the British, made their first appearance in 1916. Airplanes were no longer just for reconnaissance, they became machines of aerial combat, with dogfights between legendary aces. Submarines, particularly Germany's U-boats, prowled the Atlantic, sinking Allied ships with deadly torpedoes. And then there was chemical warfare. Chlorine and mustard gas unleashed terror on the battlefield, leaving soldiers blind, burned, or suffocating. Though much of the war was fought on European soil, the conflict spread far beyond. Battles raged in the Middle East, where the Ottoman Empire fought against Arab rebels and British forces, leading to the famous Arab Revolt and the exploits of T. E. Lawrence of Arabia. In Africa, colonial troops fought for their European masters, while in the Pacific, Japan seized German territories. By 1917, the war had taken a toll on nations, and political upheavals shook the world. Russia, drained by war and internal strife, collapsed into revolution. The Tsar was overthrown, and the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power, pulling Russia out of the war. The Austro-Hungarian Empire disintegrated, while the once mighty Ottoman Empire, long referred to as the sick man of Europe, neared its final collapse. For years, the United States remained neutral, but Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare and the infamous Zimmermann telegram, which proposed a German-Mexican alliance against the U.S., changed everything. In April 1917, the U.S. entered the war on the side of the Allies, bringing fresh troops, supplies, and industrial might. The balance of power shifted, and by 1918, the exhausted Central Powers were on the brink of defeat. On November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., the guns finally fell silent. The war had claimed over 16 million lives, leaving nations in ruins. But the end of fighting did not mean the end of suffering. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, imposed harsh penalties on Germany, demanding reparations and redrawing borders. This treaty would later sow the seeds of another, even greater conflict, World War II. World War I was more than just a war, it was a turning point in history. The world map was redrawn, with new nations emerging from the ashes of fallen empires. The League of Nations was created in an attempt to prevent future wars, though it would ultimately fail. The war left behind a lost generation, men who returned home physically and emotionally scarred. And in its wake, ideological battles, fascism, communism, and nationalism began to shape the century ahead. World War I changed everything.